Hi, everyone. Welcome to Dismantling Injustice, the podcast of the Brooklyn Community Bail Fund. At BCBF, we work with allies to free people from incarceration, whether it's prison, jail, immigrant detention, or surveillance. On this podcast, we offer analysis on issues affecting folks who encounter the criminal, legal, and immigration systems. You can learn more about our work by visiting us at brooklynbailfund.org. I'm Hamad-Lipscombe, BCBF's Director of Advocacy and Policy, and I'm here with my co-pilot behind the dashboard, Saleh Israel, BCBF's Director of Special Initiatives and the producer and creator of this podcast. Now today we're going to talk about immigration from the perspective of those currently detained. BCBF believes that incarceration is punitive and violent, and that no one, absolutely no human being, should be caged under any circumstance. Now, it goes without saying, but we're going to say it anyway for folks in the back. Immigrant detention, which under the law is supposed to be quote-unquote civil, is inhumane. Many people don't realize this, but immigration falls outside of the scope of the criminal legal system. When I bring this up in trainings, people are often surprised. Because immigration is outside of the criminal legal system, immigrants are not afforded the same rights in immigration proceedings, in immigration court, as they would if they were in criminal court. For example, there's no right to an attorney. Due process applies differently than it would in criminal court. What is similar, though, is that like all forms of incarceration, detention brings another layer of trauma to migrants who go through a painful, dangerous journey, often risking their lives for safety and to reunite with loved ones in the U.S. And this is why Brooklyn Community Bail Fund pays immigration bond to free people from the grips of incarceration. Today on Dismantling Justice, we're talking to the director of BCBF's Immigration Bond Program, Rosa Santana. I'm not going to read Rosa's bio because it's quite impressive. And I'm gonna have Rosa tell us her story. Rosa, welcome.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you, Sally, for having me, and it's a pleasure to be doing this. So again, my name is Rosa Santana. I am a native of Honduras. I was born and raised in Honduras. I came here when I was 15 years old. I came with a tourist visa, and I was undocumented for many years. I was able to come at that time where they were given TPS, temporary protected status, for people in Honduras. So I was a recipient for TPS for many years as well, until I was able to become a green card holder, and now I'm a U.S. citizen through my husband. So I know, what it is to be an undocumented person in this country. We know the struggles. And that is one of the reasons why I have decided to do this work. Aside from that, also, my family went through the trauma of having one of my uncles being detained and deported and eventually separate our family. So that is why, it's my drive to continue to do this work, to continue to fight for my family, my community, and everyone that, continues to be in these centers, know the horrible conditions that they go through. So that is, why I've been doing this work since my family was separated. So it's been around 10 years. I have done a lot of work around post-release, helping when our friends are released from detention, also in detention, while we're in detention, talking to them, just monitoring human rights violations. Same with the county, making the county hold them accountable for what is happening inside the detention center, since they decided to have the contracts with ICE. So, that is some of the work that I've been doing through the years. and just connecting and educating the community on what is happening, because a lot of people don't know that, now there's more awareness of like detention centers, but back in the days, a couple of years ago, not a lot of the community members knew that, New York, New Jersey had so many detention centers. When I used to think about detention centers, it was like always centers around the border, but never around my community. So that is why, we continue to do this work, and we will not end until, we abolish ICE and all these oppressive systems that are, just hurting our Black and Brown communities.
Thanks, Rosa. And, we talk a lot, and just every time I talk to you, I think of my own family that, is African-American and came up from the South, and really, much like yours, came up to New York, just for safety, in order to, escape what were really harsh conditions in the South for Black people that were being lynched. It's just not much unlike the plight of immigrants that are fleeing to the U.S. to escape violence, to escape conditions that are often caused by the U.S. Which is also the same as the experience of many African Americans, and then come up here and are forced to deal with a very punitive and harsh carceral state that targets and criminalizes communities of color. And so there's just so many parallels between the experiences of Black Americans and immigrants. So now, Rosa, I'd love for you to just tell us, because I know that you are on the ground and you're doing this work with folks that are detained. What are you seeing and hearing? What's going on with our community members that are currently in immigrant detention?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's, a lot of depression, uncertainty, and really trauma that our community members are facing in detention. And, they're fighting for their immigration case, but also fighting for humane conditions and treatment inside these facilities, inside detention centers. There's also a fear for their life. We are going through a pandemic, and they are inside centers where it is nearly impossible for them to have social distance. So there is this fear that, they are going to be dying in detention center if they don't get out. So there's also a lot of because of the pandemic and because of COVID-19 cases, because we have seen from cases to cases. The first case in our area was in Bergen County Jail, a positive case. It was in Bergen County Jail, and then we have seen COVID-19 cases throughout all the facilities, and so many deaths also because of COVID-19. So there's a lot of fear, and just they want their freedom more now than ever. No one should be detained, especially during a pandemic. So because of COVID-19 and COVID-19 cases in the facilities, the jails have, they're basically putting everyone in lockdown, where they are only allowed to go for an hour or two during the day, or sometimes like 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour in the afternoon, where it is extremely hard for someone to, during that hour, to use a microwave, to call their attorneys, to call their relatives. So a lot of our detained community members are upset because they don't have, they're not able to do what they normally used to do inside the detention center. It's not that they are able to do much, but now it's even worse, where they are restrained to their cells or a bed through 22 hours a day. So we have been hearing a lot about that, and of course, during the pandemic, the worst is the food has gone from bad to worse. So it's just like a lot of complaints that we hear also, like guards not wearing masks when they go into the dorms or inside the cells. So again, the fear of contracting the virus and being in a place where they know that they're not going to have the proper medical care. So it's especially for someone who has already been into trauma, there's like more of a trauma. So that's a little bit of what we have been hearing lately and throughout the whole pandemic.
Wow, yeah. When you hear some policymakers talk about immigration detention, I've often heard, people describe these like very bright detention centers with flat screen TVs and show photos of people in detention playing soccer. And I juxtapose that against the image of Rikers Island, which is, just renowned for being awful. But what it sounds like you're describing to me, Rosa, is just, like little Rikers Island-like facilities around the country that are housing immigrants, like facilities that are just as bad, if not worse, than Rikers Island. And yet people have really no recourse and no way to get the issues that they face addressed.
Yes, and we often see those pictures, and we're like, where do they take those pictures? Because it's not to any of the centers that we have around, because I could tell you that in Essex and Hudson and in Bergen County, they do not have outside recreational activities. They cannot go outside. They usually their recreational activity is like it's a room where they have all like this windows and some air where they call the fresh air, which is like vents, and that's about it. And they don't have any space to do anything. They have like a pull-up bar in the middle of the door of the room, and that's it. So often when I see those pictures, I'm like, this is not near us, or it's not nothing similar to what we have witnessed of the jails. So you're very right.
Wow. Well, like in the much like folks that that have been incarcerated before them, folks in detention over the last year or so have begun to take a stand. And now they've always taken a stand, but I think toward the end of last year, especially in our area in the New York, New Jersey region, we saw immigrants, our community members in detention, really just act cohesively to try to bring change in immigrant detention, to shed light on the issues they're facing, and to really push back and bring the scrutiny on ICE toward ICE. Can you tell us about some of the activism taking place in our area? I know there are detention centers in Bergen County, Elizabeth, and Hudson in New Jersey. Can you talk to us about some of the activism that's going on inside of the detention centers? And also, what are folks on the outside doing to support those that are fighting in detention?
Yeah, we did see a lot of action inside the facilities during the last couple of months, and I think it's they have found that they still have they have some power, but they have been empowered to use that power inside, and that they're not afraid of retaliation. So they have they have denied they have not been hunger strike. They have been doing hunger strikes. So what had happened was that there was a couple of transfers from Essex to Bergen. So somehow they were all linked. They started linking one person in Essex to Bergen to Hudson, and just aligned to, if we start having a hunger strike in one facility, and then we have all the facilities to do the same, we can make some changes. And they did. They because of those hunger strikes, because of the actions that were taken, they actually had some of them who were released. While they were released, they were still like helping the friends who were inside, and getting their calls, recording those calls and making them public, We also have heard, of the heat not being on at Bergen County Jail, and that has been happening. During the summer, we heard that there was no air conditioner. Now there was no heat. So people in the inside making calls and just making the community aware of what's happening for the community together to go and fight and make calls to representatives, make calls to the sheriff's department of Bergen, the county administration, the commissioners at all the facilities. So with the help of people from the outside and connections from, different coalitions, it has been possible to get some of our friends released because of the efforts of our friends refusing to eat. So it has been some of the support of people from the outside that have been doing some mobilization and organizing those released friends with the people inside, which is really great to know that, the people inside are not afraid anymore. Because that is why, a lot of our friends in detention don't speak up, because they're afraid that of any retaliation, that they're scared that they're going to be moved or transferred to other facility, or they're going to be put into solitary confinement. Mm-hmm. Well, if that happens now, the community is also aware, and it could be, their voices we are able to raise their voices to do and make some changes for them. So that is what we have witnessed and seen in the last couple of months, and we'll continue, to support them in any way we can. Also, the support that we have done is around, a lot of our friends in detention don't have commissary. So at the point when someone goes into hunger strike, the process, the ICE, because of the ICE standards, they remove them from their dorm, put them into a different room, which is basically kind of like solitary confinement. They remove their commissary, and they monitor them. Mm-hmm. Where basically at every meal they go in and kind of tell them, or tell them that you have to eat. So if they taken all the commissaries and everything at the end, when they decide to eat, they're not going to have food. So that is why it's extremely important for people on the outside to understand that if someone goes into hunger strike, that they will need commissary funds. And that has been some of the work that we have been helping with other organizers, just making sure that they have enough funds for them to be able to have some commissary funds.
Wow, what you're describing, Rosa, is really it's really inspiring. I think that in my experience, the most effective movements are really not only center people that are directly impacted, but are actually led by people that are directly impacted. And it sounds as though what's happening, in the detention centers that you're talking about there in northern New Jersey, are that people that are in detention are identifying strategic tactics that they're going to take to raise awareness around what they're facing, and people on the outside are following them and supplementing their activities with actions that can take place in the street. So that's that's just super powerful. Now shifting our attention toward immigration bond. Immigration bond is one of the few ways that people that are detained have to actually get free from the grips of ICE, from immigration detention. Can you talk to me about Brooklyn Community Bail Fund's bond payment program? Who do we pay bond for? How much is the average bond? And how do they find us?
Yeah, I'm super glad to be able to, speak on this, because, sometimes when we talk about bond funds, I don't realize the extent of the work that is done, to raise funds and the difference you're making to liberate someone from detention. At BCBF, Brooklyn Community Bail Fund, we used to be doing, most of the bonds around New York, any connection that someone has for New York City, or, if they lived in New York City, they had worked in New York City, or if they were going to, release, go and have some type of connection to New York. we understand that, the need is larger than just people from New York City, and we have actually extended to anyone that needs a bond and we are able to afford and we're able to pay for it, that we don't have that requirement anymore. So we get referrals from anywhere. It could be, most of our referrals come from our partners, which is, the NIFA. But we also have referrals from Justice for Minorities in state New York. We have, our partners also in New Jersey, Legal Aid, New Jersey Legal Services, Seton Hall University, American Foreign Service Committee. We also are getting now, because we're making connections with people in the inside. We are getting calls from inside the detention center. We actually had a call from someone last week who told us that his bond was actually today. And, just to let us know, I might have a bond. Can you guys help us? And we actually got a call today from him, and his bond is actually $35,000, which is like extremely high bond. We actually I just came back from the bond office for paying another $35,000 bond. This is from the same detention, from the same facility, Bergen County Jail. Not the same judge, but we don't understand how, especially someone who has been there for over 3 years, has mental health issues, is getting a $35,000 bond. And that is just extremely upsetting to see that. In our organization, we try to go beyond, looking into the amount of the bond. Of course, we have to be careful, but just like seeing that we need to help this person to get out of detention. So we pay bonds for anyone that comes, and of course we like I said again, we have to look into our budget, how much we could pay, but we have been seeing lately, like in Buffalo, most of the bonds are we getting for this week on Monday and today. We have paid a total of 7 bonds. We have 2 more for Friday. So it's a total of 9 bonds. And the average in upstate right now, upstate New York, is $10,000. And it's almost the same for around New Jersey and, Hudson and Bergen. But with these 2 bonds that we have received in the last week, it's just, we are outraged that there's such a high bonds, especially for, immigrant communities to just expect someone, our family, to have $30,000 to be able to post a bond. It's not that, other bonds where you could put a certain amount down and they will be able to help. Or immigration bond, you have to pay the full bond amount. So it is really upsetting that we keep on seeing such a high bonds. We also had another referral today for $25,000 for a person. It's in Louisiana, but he's coming here to our area. So unfortunately, we have been just getting hit with very high bonds. But we will continue to help and free and liberate our friends, because we shouldn't see them in this system is so messed up. They see them as money, and that this and everything is about money. So it's $35,000 bond. But one of the crazy things is that when I was paying bond, and the lady was just telling me how her computer was so slow because the system is so slow. And I said, "Oh, so you need a new computer?" And her response was like, "Oh, I have been asking for a computer, but they said that we don't have enough budget." And I just couldn't believe that. I said, "You're telling," and I told her, I said, "I'm paying, a $35,000, bond, and you're telling me that you cannot afford a computer." It's just unbelievable. But that's how messed up, ICE and Homeland Security is. But we will, continue to help our friends. raise funds to liberate our community members and continue to work to end this whole system.
Yeah, I can't, as you talk, like I know I keep doing this, but I still think of parallels with the criminal legal system, not just the fact that I'm in criminal courts. A lot of the computers are from the early 90s running Windows 95 and are really, really slow. But also I think of, I think of bail, and over the last few years, there's been a lot of attention on bail reform and the need to end cash bail. There's been a lot of success here in New York. There's been some success, although it's very limited. In Jersey, similarly. But even at its worst, bail, was often $500, $1,000, which is absolutely out of reach for most poor families. But, like from what I know of immigration bond, it's quite common for immigration bond to be $5,000, $10,000, as you mentioned, upwards of $35,000. Really unnecessarily. And, there just can't be an expectation that poor families that are, recently or just arriving in the U.S. Are able to pay that dollar amount. And it's not, it's set, it's arbitrary, it's not tied to anything. There's no proof that high immigration bonds result in a higher likelihood of individuals returning to court. Nothing. And so just like bail, the immigration bond system is just, absolutely unjust and egregious. And it's unfortunate that, we have to live in this regime where bond is the only answer for so many immigrants. That's why it's so great that that we at BCBF are able to pay immigration bond, and that people like you have been working in immigration detention centers for so long, and you've been able to watch how the system has changed, how it's gotten better, how it's improved, how it's gotten worse under the Trump administration. And so you're really able to bring that expertise to bear in fighting for immigrants. I'm gonna, I don't have too many more questions for you, Rosa, because I know that, you have to get back to, fighting the good fight. But what other support do you and our immigration team provide our community members once they're released?
Yeah, that is something, we also support, keep supporting someone when they're released. We just don't leave them, and we do try to have, as soon as they get out, they do receive a welcome home package from us that has $150, just for basic necessities. But we also make sure that they're connected to mutual aids, they're connected to just assessing their needs and connecting to the communities. If they need medical attention, I'll connect them to community health clinics that are doing some work, either low bono or, free of charge. So we don't try to make sure that they are not just on their own, because we understand how difficult it is, especially for someone who has been in detention for a while or is just arriving to the country, to make sure that they have connections to the community and to know that they're not alone and that they have a support system. So we keep on checking on them. Also send them court reminders if they have an upcoming hearing. We make sure that they know, that they're aware, because as we know, there are a lot of they're sent by mail, like the court the court letters are sent by mail. So a lot of them are just lost, and they're not aware. So we make sure that they know, for them to go back to court, which, like you mentioned, most of our friends who we bond out, they do go back to court. So that's not an issue. So yeah, we just try to support any way we can, and also connecting them to already existing community organizations that might be able to assist them further. So that's a little bit of work that we do.
And then what can our audience members do right now to support folks in detention?
So, we have a lot of, because of the prior administration, he was just so vocal and, just hateful. We have actually got a lot of, just individuals and also organizations that have been supporting friends and detention. There are some, individuals who are, were against everything that the prior administration was for, and they just wanted to fight. So we have seen a lot of people that have been, standing in solidarity with people in detention. And also, there has been new coalitions that have been formed of individuals that want to end detention, want to end, just ICE, and they have just come together. So it's different audiences that members that have been involved, and of course we have community organizations such as Cosecha that has the very grassroots, and they're run by immigrants themselves. So it's just variety of individuals who have been just fighting and making sure that we elevate whatever is happening in the inside.
That's great. Well, Rosa, as always, it's been a pleasure talking to you. And thank you so much for joining us today. To learn more about Brooklyn Community Bail Fund and our immigration bond program, you can visit us online at www.brooklynbailfund.org. You can also follow us or DM us on Twitter at BK Bail Fund, or Instagram at Brooklyn Bail Fund. And again, as always, until next time, and until we are all free, peace out.